In 590 BC, a man sitting in a prison camp in Babylon wrote down a vision. He had never been to Russia. He had never heard of Turkey. Iran did not exist yet. Libya was a name on no map he had ever seen. He wrote down 5 nations. He named them, described their military alliance, explained exactly why they would unite, and described what would ultimately stop them. His name was Ezekiel. And this week, for the first time in recorded history, all 5 of those nations are in active military alignment, simultaneously. I'm not going to tell you what to believe. I'm going to show you what he wrote, and then I'm going to show you this week's news, and you will make your own decision. But before we get to the coalition, there is a single verse in this chapter that nobody talks about. Verse 10. It describes exactly what is going through the mind of the leader when he decides to move. And it is not what you think. It is not hate, not religion. It has nothing to do with ideology. When I tell you what it actually is, you will recognize it immediately, because you have been watching it play out in the news for years without knowing it had a name 2,600 years ago. That is where this video is going. Stay with me. Ezekiel 38, 1-6. God speaks to a man named Gog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal, coming from the far north of Israel. Draw a straight line north from Jerusalem, and you land in the center of Russia. The ancient historians Josephus, Pliny, and Herodotus, writing in Greek and Latin, all identified Magog with the Scythian peoples north of the Black and Caspian Seas. That is modern Russia. Meshech maps to Moscow. Tubal maps to Tobolsk, the Siberian oil capital. Russia, named 2,600 years before Russia existed. Now the Allies Ezekiel names. Persia, modern Iran. We just watched the bow of Persia get broken on February 28, 2026. But a wounded bear does not surrender. A wounded bear calls its allies. Cush, the ancient name for the territory south of Egypt, covers modern Sudan and parts of Ethiopia. Put is ancient Libya. In 2025, Russia expanded its military presence in Libya with a suspected naval base on the Mediterranean coast. The ancient name Put, standing right where Ezekiel placed it. Gomer and Beth Togarmah are the ancient names for the territories of modern Turkey. The House of Togarmah in the far north, with all its troops. Turkey, a NATO member, a country that has been moving away from the West and toward Russia and Iran since 2016. 6 nations, named individually, located precisely, written in 590 BC. And here is the detail that separates Ezekiel from every other ancient text. He does not describe a vague northern threat. He names the specific modern geography of a 21st century military alliance. Russia, Iran, Turkey, Libya, Sudan. Ezekiel named all 5, 2,600 years ago. If you had to choose one word to describe what you feel right now watching this map come together, what would it be? Leave it below. One word. I want to see what this does to people. Someone always asks, why would these countries unite? They have different religions, different languages, different interests. The answer is that they have one thing in common. They are all excluded from the Western economic order. Russia is under the most severe sanctions in modern history since 2022. Iran has been under American sanctions for 47 years. Turkey is increasingly frozen out of EU integration. Libya is a failed state desperate for a patron. Sudan is under international isolation. 5 nations that cannot participate in the Western financial system. 5 nations with massive energy resources. 5 nations with a shared enemy. In 2025, Russia signed a formal strategic partnership treaty with Iran, the first formal military-economic alliance between the 2 countries in modern history. Turkey, Russia, and Iran have been holding joint strategic meetings since 2017 through the Astana process, a diplomatic framework created to coordinate their positions on Syria. It put the joint military forces of all three nations on Israel's northern border simultaneously. Ezekiel 38:6 says the coalition comes from the far north. Russia, Iran, and Turkey are currently coordinating military operations directly north of Israel, in the same territory, at the same time. But Ezekiel says something that geopolitical analysts miss entirely. He says God will put hooks in the jaws of Gog and draw him out. The leader of this coalition does not come by choice, he is drawn. Something happens that makes him move. Ezekiel 38:10 describes exactly what that something is. That is the verse I told you to hold. We are getting close. In our first video this week, we showed you Joel 2:31. The sun turned dark on February 17th, 2026. The moon turned to blood on March 3rd, 2026. Tonight, Joel wrote this for a specific audience, not for Rome, not for Greece. He wrote it for the nations gathered against Israel. Joel 3:1-2, the verses that follow immediately after the blood moon. In those days and at that time, when I restore the fortunes of Judah and Jerusalem, I will gather all nations and bring them down to the Valley of Jehoshaphat. There I will put them on trial for what they did to my inheritance, my people Israel. The blood moon is not a message to Israel. It is a message to the nations assembling against Israel. Jehoshaphat means God judges. Joel places the Valley of Divine Judgment immediately after the blood moon. Ezekiel places the Gog coalition immediately after Israel is living in perceived safety. February 28th. Iran attacked. March 3rd. Blood moon. The sequence is accelerating. Open Joel chapter 3 right now. Read verse 1 and verse 2. Then look at the news from the last 72 hours. Come back and tell me, not what you believe, tell me what you see, because I want to know if you are reading the same thing I'm reading. Now verse 10, the verse I held from the beginning. Ezekiel 38:10-11. Thus says the Lord God, on that day, thoughts will come into your mind, and you will devise an evil scheme and say, I will go up against the land of unwalled villages. I will fall upon the quiet people who dwell securely, all of them dwelling without walls and having no bars or gates. Read that carefully. The goal is not to destroy Israel. The goal is to take spoil, to seize plunder, to take away silver and gold, livestock and goods. Great spoil. In recent years, Israel discovered the Leviathan and Tamar gas fields in the Mediterranean, one of the largest natural gas discoveries in the world. Israel became an energy exporter, a direct competitor to Russian and Iranian energy dominance in the region. The evil thought of Ezekiel 38:10 is not religious. It is economic. It is strategic. Kill the competition, seize the resources, redraw the map, replace the Western-backed order with a new one. This is not a war over land. This is a coup against the world order. And Ezekiel described the motivation 2,600 years ago. But Ezekiel 38 contains something that neither military analysts nor most Bible teachers discuss. When this coalition moves, God says he will respond in a way that will cause every person on earth to know who he is. Ezekiel 38:23. I will magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will make myself known in the eyes of many nations. This is not just a military battle. This is a divine disclosure. Something will happen on the mountains of Israel that will be seen by every nation on earth. The technology that makes that possible now exists. 5.4 billion smartphones. We discussed it 2 videos ago. We are almost at the twist. Ezekiel 38:18-22. The coalition arrives. They cover the land like a cloud, and then something happens that no military doctrine anticipates. On that day there shall be a great earthquake in the land of Israel. Every wall shall tumble to the ground. I will summon a sword against Gog on all my mountains, and I will rain upon him and his hordes and the many peoples who are with him. torrential rains and hailstones, fire and sulfur. The coalition does not lose to the Israeli Defense Forces. The coalition does not lose to American missiles. The coalition is destroyed on the mountains of Israel by something that has no military explanation. And the aftermath. Ezekiel 39:9. Those who live in the towns of Israel will go out and use the weapons for fuel and burn them up. The small and large shields, the bows and arrows, the war clubs and spears. For 7 years they will use them for fuel. 7 years of weapons, burned as fuel. And verse 12. For 7 months the Israelites will be burying them in order to cleanse the land. 7 months of burial. For a coalition that came to seize the wealth of nations. I am not predicting this is happening today. I'm showing you that a man writing in 590 BC described a specific coalition, named the countries, located them on the map, described their economic motive, and described the most specific military outcome in all of ancient prophecy. Ezekiel says this coalition will be destroyed not by armies, but by an earthquake, fire, and sulfur on the mountains of Israel. And that 5.4 billion people with smartphones will be watching. Here is my question. Not for the comments, but for yourself. If you woke up tomorrow and this was happening live on every news channel in the world, would you be surprised? Or would you remember this video? Think about that. Ezekiel 38 is placed in a specific sequence in the Bible. Chapter 37. Israel is regathered. The Valley of Dry Bones becomes a nation in 1948. Chapters 38 to 39. The Gog and Magog coalition attacks and is destroyed. Chapters 40 to 48. Ezekiel describes a new temple in exhaustive detail, measurements, courtyards, gates, priests, offerings. The third temple comes immediately after the Gog and Magog war in Ezekiel's sequence, and today the Temple Institute in Jerusalem has already prepared. The priestly garments are made, the temple vessels are ready, the architectural blueprints are complete. A red heifer, required for temple purification, was identified in 2022 and prepared. Everything needed to begin. Temple construction exists today. The only thing missing is the political moment. Ezekiel says that moment comes after the Gog coalition is destroyed, after the nations see what happens on the mountains of Israel, after 7 months of burial. But the third temple contains a detail that most Christians have never heard about. Daniel 9 says that in the middle of the final 7 years, someone will enter the temple and put a stop to sacrifice and offering. That means the temple must be rebuilt and functioning before that moment can occur. And Daniel gives a specific number of days from that moment to the end, 1,290 days. The same number we discussed 2 videos ago. All of these threads connect. The next video pulls them together into a single timeline that will change how you read everything you have seen this week. Jeremiah 49. The bow of Elam broken. February 28th, 2026. Joel 2:31. Sun dark, moon to blood. February 17th and March 3rd, 2026. Ezekiel 38. The coalition assembling: Russia, Iran, Turkey, Libya, Sudan. 5 nations named 2,600 years ago, all 5 in formal or informal military alignment today, for the first time in history simultaneously. One man wrote about all of this. From exile in Babylon, 600 years before Christ, without a map, without satellites, without a television, his name was Ezekiel. And he described the week of February 28th, 2026, in a scroll that has been sitting in the Bible for 2,600 years, waiting for the generation that would be alive to see it. I am not telling you to be afraid. Ezekiel 38:23 says this ends with God making himself known to every nation on earth. That is not a story of defeat. That is the most significant divine disclosure in human history. The only question is whether you are paying attention. Here is the only question that matters after watching this video, not are you convinced? Not, do you believe the prophecy? The question is, what would spiritual preparedness actually look like for you right now, this week, given everything you have seen? Answer that for yourself. And if someone in your life is watching the news and asking what is happening, send them this video. Let the text speak for itself.